Here we go. Everything's on.
I don't know.
We're good. I think we did it. Wow.
Yay.
All right, here we are.
Hello. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Hi there. Okay, so I'm going to look here first to introduce us because that's going on YouTube.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. So, hi, I'm Tim Welch, and this is Conscious Coffee with myself and with my partner, my girlfriend. This is Jessie.
Hello.
Jessie is a spiritual blogger. She's a dating coach, a spiritual coach at rebelhippiesoul.com. And Selfless Awakening. This is Selfless Awakening, the YouTube, and also on Instagram, where I like to talk about higher consciousness, mindfulness, grounding all of this spiritual stuff, making sense of it, talking about the insights I've had in my life and with my clients. And we talk about the insights you've had with your clients and your work. And this is our first, let me get it so I'm official.
Yes.
We're doing.
You need the.
We're
but
doing,
you're not drinking coffee. You're drinking tea.
Yeah, this is conscious coffee, kind of, but I don't drink coffee as much. I'm more of a tea guy. So we're doing it. We're starting a podcast. And today, our first episode, it's a good time for us to talk about some cool things that have been going on. I need to fix this camera here real quick. First thing we're going to talk about today is how complicated it is to do a podcast. That's what we're going to talk about. No, all right. So, as those of you know who follow Selfless Awakening, I'm a musician and a music producer and a voice teacher, and so I have a lot of gear for this kind of thing. It's just a matter of getting it all set up and working right on a Sunday. So, those of you who are watching on the live Instagram, if you have any topics that you'd like to throw out there, we have it kind of turned sideways, but I can still read what you guys say. So if there's anything that you're interested in talking about on the topic of higher consciousness, mindfulness, manifesting a partner, living a next level life, that kind of thing, feel free to leave a comment there, okay? But all right, here we go. Hi, Jessie. This is our first adventure at this. So what do you think?
I'm excited.
How's it going so far?
It's going.
All right. So first thing that we thought would be good to talk about is this idea of let's say a couple of the topics that we're thinking of talking about. Okay. First one was a final recap on the Abraham Hicks experience. And for those of you that don't know, I just don't know where to look here.
I know.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I was called up on stage a few weeks ago in Philadelphia at the Abraham Hicks convention, and I got to ask a very important question about the topic of inventory, and so basically we had a big talk about that on stage, and I got a video back. I got the audio back of the experience, and I was able to listen to it and comment on it. And if you're following on YouTube, I did do a video already about that. But I haven't spoken about my sort of reaction to having, a few days after having listened to the audio, because that was really a big difference for me. Was after talking with you. And your take on the audio from the experience, and
it took you a couple of days to process the whole event, everything that was said, and to draw your own conclusions about the topic. Because I think for the first week, you were still thinking about what had happened. You were still sort of awestruck from the whole experience. Yeah. So you heard the audio back. You did the second video, and then that week you had some further thoughts on the topic because you were sort of removed from it. You weren't like right in the center of it. You had some time to listen to the audio, to meditate, and so you had some sort of final thoughts to share.
Yes. Well, and also too, I think we both were kind of in alignment with the way what we felt from that Abraham Hicks video, and really what it was It really felt like she didn't answer my question, honestly. Like that was, I didn't.
And just let everyone remind everyone your question.
Yeah. So here's what I was talking about. Hi there. Hi, nice to see you. Welcome. Once again, if you do have any questions for us, feel free to leave them, or comments, or things you think would be fun to talk about or fun for us to talk about. Feel free to leave that. Just so you know, on YouTube, we have the live Instagram happening right now, so we can include people. But my question that I had for Abraham Hicks was this topic of inventory work, and that it felt to me in her teaching that she does a lot of don't look here, look there. You spend too much time. Does that thought make you feel bad? If so, don't think about it. Think over here. And I'm not in alignment with that thinking, because in my practice, looking at things that are uncomfortable to look at and releasing them, making peace with them, reframing them so they aren't uncomfortable anymore, that's a big part of my process in a joyful way. And so going on stage with her, the idea was to say, hey, is this true that you don't like inventory? Or is it is this something that I'm misunderstanding about your teaching? And so that was kind of the topic. And then she answered, and that was where we went. So, yeah.
And I think a large part of the conversation that we had was around this idea that Abraham Hicks doesn't like the word ego, and she actually sort of, she sort of flinched at the word.
Yeah.
And so this idea that part of our practice, because I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and a huge part of my practice, and I know a huge part of your practice, is discerning between the voice of intuitive guidance from that of ego, because often the voice in the head, our egos, what they tell us are not true. And so if we just focus on focusing on the positive, we put all of our awareness on, well, just focus on the positive, we never get to the point where we're able to say, there is a voice in my head that's from ego. Often it's telling me fearful thoughts, and sometimes I have to do the very thing that I'm most afraid of. It's like, if you think even in the most basic of terms, if you think about like a 13-year-old who's petrified to audition for the school play, like the solution is not do what's easy and fun all the time. Like sometimes you have to walk through fear to evolve, and it's not about turning away from the fear. It's about saying sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes when fear says you're not ready to date, sometimes you have to just start dating. Or fear says you're never going to get that job, don't send in that resume. Like if you're only listening to, if you take the voice in your head as truth, then you're going to live a very safe, comfortable life, but you're not going to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I presented the idea, of ego to her in my experience with the live video, or I'm sorry, I'm so distracted. Yeah, when I experienced in the shooting of this thing, or in the experience with her, when I brought up the word ego, what happened was she immediately pounced on it, and she shut it down, like, because what I said was it was egoic of me to like with the business that I have here, it was becoming a part of me that it's always growing this much, and it always needs to grow this much. And then I had a little window of it not growing this much. And my ego was attached to this idea of growth. And when I let go of it and I said, universe, I surrender this attachment my ego has to growth, and I allow you to guide me to focus on what's most important with this business, which for me, it's being of service to others, and it's whatever this business can do to reach as many people as possible to find the joy of singing and light up and that kind of thing. And when I aligned with that, when I realized, like, forget about growth. Growth will come and go, but focus on the highest priority. When I aligned with that, everything released. I felt free, but it took some actual inventory work. It took some actual time of not distracting myself from from thinking about it and like, don't look there.
Right.
It was me actually allowing
you have to look.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when you allow something to be there, not from a place of judgment and also not from a place of escape, because it's very easy to try to escape fear. When I looked at it from that place of okayness, of acceptance, and like, oh, look at this attachment I had. Like, I'm obsessed with growth, and as opposed to obsessed with being of service to as many people as I can and surrendering it. And then when, so it took some examination, and if I had skirted off of it, I wouldn't have had the discovery. So, and also another thing about it is, in looking at things that may feel unsavory, what you do is you realize nothing is unsavory or nothing's bad. Like, because you can have an understanding in the moment of something that feels like, oh, don't think about that. That's bad to think about. And you can get to a place with it where you're like, oh, I feel resistance to this thought on one level. And then on another level,
it's peaceful.
I can be okay with it and not identified with it. And I don't need to run away from it because it's not, I'm not unhappy that it's here. Yeah,
it reminds me of our practice as a couple to look at things that do feel uncomfortable. When fear comes up, it's like, and we had that long conversation this morning about a fear that came up, and it wouldn't have served us for me to just say, well, focus on the good, don't talk about this feels uncomfortable, like oftentimes, especially when dealing with relationships, whether it's a partnership that's romantic, whether it's a friendship, whether it's, a coworker. But when you're dealing with other people, you can get caught up in the idea of, well, I'm only going to focus on the positive. But sometimes it is helpful to say, hey, we need to talk. Like, in order for this relationship to work, let's really look at this. Or, something that maybe there's a small thing. Maybe this one thing you're doing that I feel is inconsiderate. If we could talk about this one thing, it would clear a lot of space in our relationship. But like, by not talking about it, it sort of evades the problem. And, I think it's good short term. Like, if you're not looking for a long-term relationship with someone, you could just be like, well, I only see this person, whatever, 20 minutes a month. All right, just focus on the good. But when you're talking about people who are an integral part of your personal life, there does come a point where I feel it's purposeful to look at fears and examine them and present them, because then together the goal is you can reach some level of truth. Like, here's a fear that's arisen in me. What is the truth? What is the highest good? And then it's not that I'm identified with the fear. I'm not presenting it in this angry tone where I'm clinging to it in a complainy way, like, when you did, but rather like, hey, I have this, A Course in Miracles calls it a grievance. Like, this thought has been looping in my mind. I don't want it looping my mind. This thought is creating distance between us. Let's examine the thought so that we can move beyond it and we can join and come together. And I think that that's a tool for people to use that can be very helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You've mentioned truth, and that's been coming up in my mind a lot in reflecting about the Abraham Hicks stuff, is that you have to be willing to look at your past and look at yourself and really look to find the truth in your life. And that takes inventory work. That the truth will set you free. And I know for me, the voice in my head loves to lie to itself. It lies about everything. It says I'm this and I'm that, and it makes comments, and without genuine examination, spending more than 7 seconds or whatever she says you're supposed to get off a thought. And furthermore, if what Bruce Lipton says is true, that most of our thinking is subconscious thinking, then how much thinking is going on behind the scenes that you're not even aware of. And so it's like, this is an examination thing. Now, one thing I do want to say is, it's very important, though, in this examination that there's a process of looking. You get in and you get out. You don't linger there, because that can also be a tool of the ego to take and constantly overly analyze everything about yourself. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of get in like, oh, why did I say that? Oh, interesting. I was upset that I was gonna lose my seat in the show. So I said that, and I was being afraid. Okay, that's what I was doing. Okay, so I was afraid. Universe, anything I can learn from this? Yeah, next time go with the flow a little more when you go to the theater. And then it's like, okay, and then it's like, thank you, universe. I'm going to shift my focus now to something else. If you have more for me to learn from it, fine. But if not, I'm not going to focus on it anymore. Like that. Like having you get in, you look at what's bothering you, you give it space, you try to learn from it, and then you get out. And that's all you need. Like, you don't have to linger there. You don't have to call everybody you know and like, you won't believe what happened and talk to 5 different people. Because if you do that, then what you're definitely doing is you're reinforcing you're reinforcing that thing. And in that way, she's 100% right. Like, I think it's, if you're reinforcing your negativity.
Here's the way that I look at it. If you're focusing on the negative by way of complaining, by way of ranting, oh, my job sucks, oh, the weather sucks, oh, what my boyfriend did is annoying, let me call my mom and rant about it. If your version of looking at the truth is just ranting about it, then it's not helpful. But if your version of looking at the truth is really sitting from a place of willing to be still and peaceful and saying, universe, I'm willing to look at this truth. Maybe it's me. The voice in my head is saying that this person is a jerk. I'm willing to be the jerk. What is the loving thought? What is correct perception? And if you look at it from that place, like, I'm looking at this thought because my goal is to feel peace. My goal, I'm bringing this fear to my partner because my goal is to join with him and feel more connected with him. And there's a voice in my head that wants me to run away from him. So let me present this because the goal is to ultimately join. Like, if your intention is from a place of like, to feel union, to experience more peace, to feel the levity that comes with forgiveness, the levity that comes with releasing a stress, like, then if you look at the fear to release it, I think it's helpful. If your goal is just to perpetuate more fear by complaining, then I agree that you might as well not talk about it. And that's what I was saying. You got that email this morning, prime example. Tim got an email from I call him a kooky kabuki, meaning just a real kooky bird who sent a kind of mean email, and he was someone who is from Tim's past. And Tim was saying he was going to ask his friend about this person, and I said, don't even ask, let it go. This is a kooky kabuki person. He didn't have good intentions. Send him peace and love. Like, there was no good that was going to come from perpetuating the story. So I think it's all about your intention for looking. Is it to release it and heal it? Or is it to perpetuate it and add on to the story?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's where having a process is so important when you're looking at yourself. It's like, what are you going to do? For me, it's I ask what's bothering me. I let the voice in my head get it all out. Once the voice in the head starts repeating what it's saying, then when it starts looping, because the voice in the head will loop over and over what it's saying. So once it starts looping, then I stop it and I ask the universe, okay, there it is. What can I learn from this? Then a bunch of shit comes in my head of things I can learn from it, usually more than I want to hear. And then after that, I say, okay, anything else? And then it's kind of like, nope, that's good.
That's what the voice sounds
that's
like.
what it says. Nope, that's good. Right.
It's kind of high-pitched when it's finished.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I shift my focus. Like, that's what I do. And I can feel sometimes when I am looking at something that it will itch. It'll have an itch for me to, like, spend more time looking at it, like, oh, I want to look at this more. I want to feel bad with it. I want to relive the badness. Like, we have this weird thing inside of us sometimes where we want to just, like, think about and feel that shame and sit in that whatever it is.
That's because we don't have the capacity to experience joy on that day. We don't have we won't give ourselves permission to feel joyful in every moment. So our minds are constantly seeking what we're lacking, what's gone wrong, and our minds will fixate on those things instead of fixating on, I had a great meal today, I have a loving family, I'm healthy. Like our minds want to limit the amount of joy we can feel. So we have to be vigilant in watching, is this energy in me something that needs to be perpetuated, or is the voice in my head just trying to make me miserable? Like, it's Friday, I got home from work, I'm feeling great. Like, there's no need to sit around lamenting the story from the week. Like this, I'm just lamenting the story from the week because I won't let myself chill out. And I won't give myself permission to chill. So instead, I'm going to overanalyze everything. You know, my process is I sit in the morning, and during my spiritual practice, I study the feeling of alignment. Like, I really say, right now, I'm in alignment. I feel I can hear my intuitive guidance. I feel very connected to spirit. And I watch, like, I pay attention. How do I feel in my body? What does this feel like? What do my thoughts feel like? And then during the day, when my thoughts go kooky kabuki, I say to myself, when I'm examining a truth, based on what truth feels like, based on how I felt in the morning, that lovely light feeling. Once I leave that space of lovely light feeling, it's like I've gone astray. Like I'm going to take responsibility for that. Like there's something is wrong, because I know when I'm in alignment, it's this lovely light feeling. And when I'm not in alignment, it's this like crazy energy. So it's like something has gone astray. Like, Jessie, ding, ding, ding. You've gone off the rails. Bring it back, you know. So it's first knowing what it feels like when you are in alignment, when you hear intuitive guidance, when you feel peaceful. How does it feel in your body? What do your thoughts sound like? You know, like, study it. So that when you go off, you're like, oh, this is different. This isn't what I was feeling in meditation.
Totally. That's beautiful. So I guess that's it. That's, you know, we both seem to be in pretty good alignment on our take on inventory, and our take on being okay with looking at, for more than a second sometimes, the things in that maybe have come up, so we can learn from them. And it was pretty clear that you know, as much as she answered the question, it was pretty clear that Abraham Hicks does not feel that way from what she said. And so there we go. I disagree with a collection of non-physical entities speaking through Esther Hicks called Abraham, and you know, I guess that's where we're at. And I'm okay with that.
And we love her.
And also, she
is amazing.
Has the many things that have come through her. Have changed my life. And just that's one little thing. And one last thing I'll say about it. Maybe we'll see. Maybe there's more. I kind of feel it's dangerous. Honestly, I feel for some people it's dangerous. For addicts, alcoholics. If they get in their mind that, oh, don't look at that, I just got blackout drunk for the third time this week. And I'm not going to examine the truth of it. You just don't look there. You just spend
$10,000 at the store because it made you feel good.
You need to look at that. You need to sit down and really look at that.
Or you just had sex with a stranger you met at the bar. You just had unprotected sex. And you did it under the thought that you followed was, I deserve this. I feel I'm sexy. I'm young. I'm like, your mind will justify under the name of feeling good. Your mind can justify not going to work, quitting a job when you need it. It can justify overeating. It can justify breaking up when you shouldn't break up. It can justify going into debt. It can justify like, oh, I need this new car. It's going to make me feel good. It's like, do you really? Maybe the highest vibrating thing is to save the money. I believe the highest vibrating thing is not always the easy thing. Very often for me, the highest vibrating thing is doing the opposite of what my mind says. If I listen to my mind, I'm going to be shopping every day. Yeah. I'm going to be eating, vegan ice cream by the pints full. Yeah. Like, I'm going to be probably much more blunt than I am already. Like, I'm just going to be mouthing off. Like, there is a part of me that has to monitor, like, Jessie, are you in control? Like, don't do that, Jessie. Like,
and the reason is because we have automated programming. Yes. Like, this is where I'm super in alignment with Bruce Lipton and his ideas of up to the age of 7, you're in your theta brainwave state. And in that theta brainwave state, which you only access as an adult going into sleep or waking up from sleep, basically, or unless you're a deep meditator, is like, in that theta brainwave state as a child up to 7 years old, you are literally hardwiring everything you see, every behavior you see your parents do, everything that's said becomes, oh, that's the way life is. And that's literally running your life.
Right. So if you pick up the program at the age 6, if you see your mom eat for comfort, and she says food equals pleasure, food equals comfort. Oh, you had a bad day at school. Let me make you apple pie. This will make you feel better. All of a sudden, you're 35 years old, and what makes you feel good is apple pie. Right. And you're 40 pounds overweight, and you're, it's like, well, it's about stepping out of the voice in your head, because the voice in your head is giving you the programming that your mom gave you. And so until you are able to step out of the voice in your head and say, where is this coming from? Is this my mom? Is this me? Did I read this in a magazine? Is this like, where is this thought that food equals my only source of pleasure? So it's questioning. Sometimes what feels good is not the highest vibrating path.
Right, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
It just feels good because it's comfortable and you picked it up from childhood.
Yes.
A lot of it you just picked up from childhood, but it's actually not your highest vibrating path.
And also, too, like, one thing that you helped me with so incredibly was that about food and listening to how my body feels when I eat. Like, that was a revelatory thing to me. I would eat shitty and feel like shit and not even know that those two were linked. Like, I thought after you eat, you always feel a little indigestion, and I thought that was how life was. And then you were like, wait, no, listen to your body. And then you start learning, oh, wait, I eat something and I pay attention to how it feels. Oh, that makes me feel good. That doesn't make me feel good. Okay, maybe I will stop putting that in my body. But I've been putting it in my body because it was automated for me to do it. Yeah.
Right. Or you read an article that said egg whites are healthy, lean meats are healthy, carbs are bad. Like, we pick up programming around food. We hold them as truths. And then it's like, how do egg whites make me feel? Like, I eat 5 potatoes. I feel amazing. I eat 2 egg whites. I'm breaking out with acne the next day. It's like, well, actually, like, for me...
For your body,
For me,
I'm fine with eggs.
Exactly.
By the way, hey, to those of you who are watching on Instagram now, feel free. I know as new people came in the room. If you want to leave a question, this is Conscious Coffee. This is what we basically do every Sunday morning anyways.
All the time.
We just sit and talk about spirituality, mindfulness, everything that's going on, the books we're reading, and we thought it might be fun to do this as a podcast and put it on video and wherever else you put it. So if you want to leave a question. Oh, I see a question here. Wait, you asked this question before. Have you ever seen a ghost? I swear you came in this room and asked this before, and we answered it before. I don't know. Do we want to go there again? I don't know.
Well, we had the dark... the dark energy experience.
Maybe we should talk about that. Okay, thanks. We will. All right, we'll
I've
talk about your question of have you seen a ghost? Because I think we have some potential developments on that topic. Now, that being said, I'm going to speak a little empirical here, in that I'm not quite sure what I saw. It could be that what I saw was something my mind was looking to see because of what you said. Like, let's just say that is possible. However,
well, explain what we're talking about.
However, I didn't think it was quite that way exactly.
I'll explain.
Yeah, go ahead and say yes.
So,
Jessie,
okay, talk about
all right. So we're
change
talking about
in direction. Okay, so for several years, I've been sort of having these fears at nighttime, and in the past, probably 2-3 years, I've been waking up in the middle of the night and sensing a very dark energy in my bedroom. I've had experiences where I've walked to the bathroom and I could feel almost as if a person was standing there, a very dark presence. And so I told Tim about it, and Tim, wasn't into the whole dark energy story. He was like, well, I don't know about that. And then we were driving to our friend's Halloween party, or we were driving somewhere, and somehow the dark energy came up, or something came up, topic, and Tim said, well, I've been keeping something from you. He said, I woke up one night several months ago and I saw the dark energy and I felt it, and I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to become afraid of it. And so we told our friend Leslie, I told my friend Leslie, she gave me some selenite wands to place above my door frames. She gave me some sage to burn. I did a ceremony, a ritual where I walked around my bedroom. I lit the sage. I asked the dark spirit to leave. I told it was no longer welcome in my place. And I said it. It was a whole big, like, something came over me when I said it. Like, when I shut the windows, because I opened them to let it out. Yeah. And when I shut the windows, I had to catch my breath. I felt like something had shifted. And it's interesting, and I know I'm digressing from the original story, but it's interesting because I've recently been doing a lot of reading on healing the holes in one's aura, in one's auric field. I've been doing a lot of meditation work on expanding my energy field and expanding my aura. And in one fascinating article that I read, the writer said that when there are holes in our aura, which are a product of experiencing trauma in childhood, and I experienced some trauma in childhood, that when we grow up, we have holes in our aura, and we hold the trauma in our autonomic systems. So in our autonomic system, so if you think about like Reiki, like energy healing, where energy healers come in and they heal you physically, what they're doing is they're healing your nervous system, right? Your autonomic system, your nervous system, they're healing your body. And so the article said, when you have holes in your aura, you manifest dark spirits because you're attracting them. You see dark energy. And when you heal your aura and you heal your auric field, you're no longer a magnet for dark energy. And it's very interesting because I've been doing this healing work, and it coincided with my cleansing the dark energy. And I've been doing all this grounding work on feeling safe, on, you saw the mantras all around my apartment. I am safe. I am safe. I've been repeating it. And the minute I started feeling safe, the dark energy, I did this ritual and the dark energy left. I don't feel it anymore. So I do believe that there is a link between experiencing trauma, not feeling safe, and then when you don't feel safe, you have a tendency to manifest dark energy. So I don't know if it's a ghost. That's a lot of information.
Well, there's a comment on here. Let me see. Sense of being based on. I'm not sure what that comment was about the non-judgment that you said there. Holes in the aura. That's it. Oh, okay. Yeah.
What does it say?
He was saying,
yes.
Holes in the aura, that's it.
Yeah, I've been doing...
So, well, let me say, but interesting thing was, so one night after she mentioned this to me, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I swear I felt there was a dark, literally, it was like almost like a shadowy energy over on her side of the bed.
By me.
And I looked up and I remember because I felt this like.
I'm getting chills as you're talking about it.
Yeah, I really did feel a little.
Yeah.
Like I took that breath, when you're like, oh shit. Like.
Yeah.
And I felt, and I did that. And then I was sitting there and then I kind of looked again and I didn't see anything. It was like a weird, but I really felt like something was there. And I looked and I didn't tell her like at the time because I was like, oh no, this is going to
spook me out.
Yeah. And so I didn't say anything. And then it came up naturally later on, which then prompted you to do the
cleansing.
And who knows, my feeling, and this kind of tethers nicely into talking about this idea of empirical data versus spiritual openness. I was watching, for those of you, by the way, before I get into that, I wanted to ask, what was the name of the book?
About the auric field.
Yeah, do you remember?
I was reading an article online. I don't recall the website, but when it was a beautiful website. But when I read it, it resonated with me as true because I've been actively doing visualization work on healing my auric field. Yeah. And I've been actively repeating mantras like, I am safe. The universe loves me. I am safe and supported. Yeah. Like, I've been actively doing work to heal whatever trauma I've been holding in my body and in my auric field. And when I read that, I was like, oh, like it just resonated with me. You read something and you're like,
it's like truth.
It's like truth. Exactly. Yeah. I was like, oh, I was open. I had manifested that because I hadn't healed a lot of stuff and I had to do a lot of healing work. And then I no longer was an energetic match. I could no longer receive that dark energy. I let it go. And I was like, nope, I'm safe in the universe. I'm not an energetic match. I don't have holes in my aura to keep that energy in my life. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So as far as where I was kind of going after that was talking about, this is just kind of my take on what if you watch people online like I do, like Joe Rogan, Tom Bilyeu, and there's other people that talk online about self-betterment and stuff like that. As soon as anything gets into stuff like what you just were talking about, they would call that woo-woo.
Or as I like to say, woo-woo.
Yeah, woo-woo. Right, yeah. Or they would call that woo-woo and be like, where's the science? Where's the science on that? Where's the proof of that? You don't have any proof of that.
Right. Hey, yo, this is woo-woo.
And I just wanted to say my take on that because I feel it's really important. And this idea of you only should trust what your logical mind and like double-blind tests of science tell you approach to life. I find that I both am that and not that at the same time. And I want to talk about how being exclusively in this, I need to see the evidence for everything or I won't explore it or play with it type of mentality is really limiting. And here's kind of my take on it. My whole approach to spirituality and quote-unquote woo-woo things, crystals, 3D, astral projecting, Pleiadians, we're aliens, are we? What's is this really the Matrix? All that kind of shit, which we really can't actually tangibly prove right now. But what we can do is experiment with it. We can live with this idea of, I don't know if this is true. I don't even know if this is able to be proven to be true to the voice in my head, to my mind. However, I'm going to experiment with it. I'm going to experiment with the idea of listening to signs. I'm going to experiment with the idea of when an animal keeps showing up in my life, I'm going to ask myself, what's the metaphysical significance of that? Do I have any clue if there is some grand designer out there that put the cardinal in front of me to remind me to be a good leader, or the hawk that flew overhead that reminded me that I'm in alignment with intuitive guidance? Like, Who can I say that? No, I can't necessarily say that one way or the other. However, I'm doing an empirical experiment on spirituality. And why that's so important is because it's not about one or the other. That's what the mind wants to do. The mind is like, oh, I'm going to be logical and intelligent and make sense, or I should just let go and be open and to all the magic in the world. It's like, it's not one or the other of those. For me, it's both. And I'm reading this book, Something Hidden Beneath, I think is the name of it. It's a book by Sean Carroll, and it's about the quantum universe. And oh my God, you want to talk about things getting crazy and not making sense anymore? Get into reading about quantum stuff. And I'll tell you, I believe science is unraveling itself. I believe that the empirical sort of overly factually, scientifically tested in this very narrow bandwidth of a way type of thinking is going to unravel itself, because the quantum stuff, it doesn't make sense with that model of physics anymore. Like, that old classical model of physics doesn't work inside the model of quantum, which is really a more complete picture of what's happening in the universe. So my feeling is I am skeptical. I'm definitely skeptical. And I still experiment with spirituality anyway, and I have experiences. And I love my life for that. Wait, we have a comment there I want to read here.
I like how you have to look sideways.
Yeah, I know. Those people can sometimes provoke doubt, though. They say they promote truth, but they deny other people's truth. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. That's why what resonates with you is always most important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that I agree with that. Yeah. Myself.
Yes.
That's a great point. Yeah. There's doubt that gets evoked. Yeah, it's kind of, there's almost a triggeringness in that way of thinking. I like the idea of thinking openly, living openly, opening up your energy, because the real truth is, we don't know what the fuck's going on. We're floating around on a planet, in a solar system, in a galaxy, in a universe that we can't even comprehend infinite. And we think the universe might be infinite. And we're sitting here talking about, well, this is the way life is, and this is the way life isn't. We don't have a clue what's going on. And if we're anywhere too far away from that type of thinking of, it's like you almost have to start every statement with, now, wait a minute, we don't really know what the fuck's going on. But when 2 + 2 = 4, and it's like we almost have to constantly remind ourselves of, we're floating around in this universe we don't understand. We're conscious of ourselves, and we don't know why. We don't even know what consciousness is. So let's be really clear about this idea of knowing versus not knowing. We don't know anything, really. Mm-hmm. That's my take. So, I got a little passionate there. All right, let me see. Look into Dan Winter. He explains the physics of consciousness. Okay, good point. Dan Winter. We'll check it out. I haven't heard of Dan Winter. There's another comment here. Ego resonates in a tricky way, though, opposed to selfless resonance. I agree. That's a great statement. Ego's tricky. Spirit is not tricky. That's right. It's true. Ego can be super tricky. Yeah. Good comment there. Yeah. So, that's my take on it, is this idea of use the scientific method on spirituality. I guess that's what I'd say. That's how I live my life. So,
I like
anything to share on that? Any thoughts on that, or moving on?
The scientific method?
Yeah.
Well, A Course in Miracles would call it the authorship problem, which means that we think we created ourselves, and our ego tells us that we created ourselves, and so we must know everything. And the truth is, we did not create ourselves. We are powerful. We are an extension of the divine. However, whatever created us, it was not us. And so we can't expect to know everything. We have to there's a humility in saying, I didn't make myself. I'm not keeping my heart beating. I'm not consciously keeping the air in my lungs. I'm not consciously making the sun rise and making the sun set. There is a powerful something going on here that is doing it, and I'm willing to not know everything because there's humility in saying that. Like, and the ego wants to always be right. It wants to know everything. It wants to prove everything. And that's from a place of not being humble. That's from a place of, where's the data? Where's the evidence? It's like, chill out. You didn't create yourself. You're not making the sun rise. You're not making the sun set. Like, woo-woo, what do you think is going on here? Like, how's your heart beating? How's, you cut your hand and it's healing of its own volition. Like, there's an intelligence that's greater than the voice in your head that's constantly being critical, condemning, judging, categorizing, saying you need to lose weight, saying you need to go shop more, buy more, be more. Like, there's a lot more going on here. So for me, it's the authorship problem. It's be a little humble, admit that you did not create yourself, and that will lend itself to you being more open-minded.
Yes, I love it. Wait, let's see. We comment there. That's right. Never trust anyone who thinks they know everything. Bingo. I am never afraid to tell my clients I don't know. Sorry, I'm reading sideways. That's why it's a little. So, in my experiences, let's explore together. Yeah, exactly. Right. There's this openness idea of, the more open we are, the more fun life is. It's fun to play with life. It's so much more fun to explore what would it look like if this is true. What if astral projecting really works? What if there is this? What if the Pleiadian stuff is true? What if there are aliens out there communicating with us through channels?
Well, it's certainly
that's amazing. Like, it's who knows, but it's fun to dance with the ideas of that. And also, that being said, science is fun too. True science, like biology, physics, math, numbers, like, that's awesome too. I'm not saying that isn't. Empirical data is awesome. It's just one bandwidth of intelligence.
Well, here's what I would say to someone who is more logical minded, as the world would define it. I would say, if you look back at the writings of ancient mystics from way back in time, if you read the poetry of Rumi, if you read if you read ancient spiritual texts and ancient mystics' work, they're saying the same things that modern day woo-woo new age people are saying. And so my question is, and I always remind myself of this when any doubt comes into my mind, how come when I meditate, I'm getting the same thoughts that Rumi got when he meditated? How come I'm having the same epiphanies that Tim's having? How can it be that Marianne Williamson reads A Course in Miracles and it changes her life, and Gabrielle Bernstein reads A Course in Miracles and it changes her life, and I'm having the same experience? It's all too coincidental that millions of people from the history of time have had these spiritual, mystical, transcendent experiences in which they've said, wait a minute, I'm not a body, I'm having all of these experiences. And yet to be so close-minded as to say, oh, this person on YouTube talking about whatever, like, don't even look at modern day thinkers. Go back to ancient mystical writings and they're saying the same thing. What did the Buddha say? Like, go back. Like, this is not new.
There's something more going on than just what science is.
How is someone 5,000 years ago having the same epiphanies I'm having? It would be illogical to think that it's bullshit.
Yes. We had a comment, you'd like to work at Marina Jacoby's work. She's on YouTube. Very nice. Quantum. Yeah, okay, thanks for the tip. We'll check her out.
Good tip.
Yeah.
I love hearing about new people.
Energy is information. You align with an energy and you align with the information. Yes, that's true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. Yeah.
You can't receive it unless you're in a vibrational match to hearing it.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into this idea of... people that are awakening resonate with a certain information and at different stages of your awakening, which maybe that's something else we can segue into talking about. Jessie has had a client this week that she worked with who she's really awakening, and she's going through these early stages of becoming present to the voice in her head and becoming present.
And it's freaking her out.
Freaking her out. How many of you out there have felt freaked out when you became present to the voice in your head? I know I did. I had pretty much a nervous breakdown. I was like, I can't stop hearing it. Yeah. So what's her situation?
Her question was, and I gave her my answer, but then I later spoke about it with Tim for his opinion. Her question was, because we've been talking a lot about, become present to the fearful voice in your head. Start to notice all throughout the day how many times your mind judges other people, is critical, is resisting the moment. Like, just start to become aware of it. And so she's been doing that, and she found herself at a meeting at work in a resistant state. She was feeling very intimidated in that meeting, and she sensed that she was withdrawing, she was shutting down, and she woke up in that moment and was like, oh, wait a minute, this is what Jessie was talking about, about like in the moment, it's not anything external that's happening. There's an energy in me that's off, and that's shutting down. And she was looking for tools because she found it difficult in that moment to shift her state of being and to sort of step out of her thought stream. And so we were talking a lot about the difference between identification with your thoughts and observing your thoughts without being identified with them.
Yes.
And so I think there's a lot of stages in awakening, and I think one of them is you do start to notice just how crazy your mind is, but that's not the end-all, be-all. It's just not about noticing. Right. And so just different tools for people who are just starting to have that experience.
Right. Yeah, and it's one thing I just want to say about it before we talk about the stages a bit is that it is paradoxical that, every time you get deep into mindfulness talks, everything becomes a paradox where it's two opposites that seem to coexist okay together, And it's this idea of waking up and stages to awakening. On one level, it's a very true experience you can have. But on another level, it's not even true. Like, you are actually awareness all the time. You're that deepest part of yourself that is a witness to the voice in the head, a witness to everything to do with the body, the movie where you're walking around. You're that witness, and you're never not that witness. Mm-hmm. You just sometimes think you are. Mm-hmm. And so, in fact, we all basically start off thinking we're not the awareness. We get caught up in the story of our lives, and then the process or the awakening that actually happens is the waking up from the identification with the falseness. Right. So the stages of awakening that we actually experience are stages of releasing ourselves from the disillusion of the false identification of self. And so in that way, it's very much about this experience of stages. And in the early stage, pre-first awakening, you're automated, fully automated. Mm-hmm. You're a robot. You're living out the programming of your childhood. Mm-hmm. And then once you awaken, and you all of a sudden go, holy shit, there's a voice talking in my head saying all sorts of things.
Right, and most of the time it's wrong.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And I need to stop believing it.
Right, yeah. And it's like that first stage of awakening is scary. It was for me, for sure. I remember it was like I was living away in another country, and it was in a weird situation, and I was really scared. I was alone, and I was scared at what I wanted to stop hearing the voice in my head all the time. I remember that. I was looking it up. I was trying to, why is this happening to me? Yeah. And then like that was one stage, and then all of a sudden there was the next stage of, wait a minute, this isn't such a bad thing. Like I I can be back here and watch it and be okay with everything that's coming and going. Holy shit. And then I realized, whoa, like that's the end of suffering. Like I can sit in the stillness while the chatter's going, and I can just kind of check out of it. And the more that I sit in the stillness, the more I can quiet it. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, whoa, I figured everything out. There's no other spiritual breakthrough to have.
That's it. I'm done.
I'm not reading any more books. Like that was pretty much, it.
Yeah. I think at the early stages of awakening, it can be very disorienting. It can be very confusing. I think that's when a lot of people sort of don't like that experience because the waking up experience is very uncomfortable. Yeah. It's when you start to notice your negative patterns. You start to realize that it's not that other people are assholes. You're the asshole. You start to really see, gosh, I'm a lot more critical than I thought. I'm a lot more judgmental than I thought. The voice in my head just won't stop complaining. There's a sense of a loss of control. There's a sense of I'm messing up my life. It's not that there's some power outside of me and that this person's lucky so they have a great life and I'm unlucky. And so I think at that stage a lot of people get there and then they choose to go back to unconscious living and identifying with their egos because it feels uncomfortable. But I think you have to kind of be willing to push through that stage to get to the stage where you realize you can control how peaceful you feel in every moment, and that in every moment it's a practice of identifying with ego or identifying with spirit, becoming present in the moment, or identifying with the stress that you're projecting onto the future or the story you're replaying in your mind of the past. It's a moment by moment practice. And sometimes you go unconscious, sometimes you awaken. So you wake up, you're in a shitty mood. Halfway through the day, you become present and you're like, oh my goodness, I've been unconscious for 5 hours, but it's like that getting through that first stage to where you realize that you can control it. It's not it's not this thing that happens to you. It's something you can actively step into. And it's just practice. The more you do it, the better you get, the quicker you get, the more you realize you're not going to stay unconscious for a month.
And also, it kind of is something that happens to you too.
Yeah.
Again, paradoxically, that's the truth. It's like the more we talk about these like deep spiritual things, these are deep consciousness things, whatever you want to call it, like these discoveries we have of ourselves, it starts feeling like, it's like that saying, effortless effort. Like that's paradoxical. You can't have effortless effort, right? But you can. It makes sense though, You gain control by letting go of control. That's another paradoxical statement. Like this, the more zoomed out you get and the more awakened you become, you realize so much of living is about living in this there's a part of us that wants to say this or that. And it's like you learn how to say, could it be this and that?
Both, right.
Yeah. Is everything this and that? And that's the quantum, by the way. That's the quantum being in a superposition. That's what quantum universe is all about. It's all possibilities at the same time.
And you know what I think of? I think of my favorite part in the movie The Matrix, the first Matrix, where the boy is trying to teach Neo how to bend the spoon. And Neo is trying so hard to bend the spoon. Like, he's squinting his eyes. He's really trying to bend the spoon. And then the boy says, there is no spoon.
Yes.
It's paradoxical. Like, you're trying to bend the spoon.
That's not there.
There is no spoon. Like,
paradoxes,
that is if I were to summarize spirituality as I define it in this lifetime and as a human being experiencing this life from a spiritual perspective, I would say there is no spoon. And that summarizes
and
it.
Give me
everything.
that spoon, please.
And you can bend the spoon and you can eat with the spoon. But it's this awareness that all things are true, all things are not true. It's like everything is possible And you are also creating everything in every moment.
Superposition.
Everything's in superposition. Yeah. And so when you're very zoomed in and you're very identified with ego, you're not in this aerial perspective. When you're identified with your ego, when you're going about your life, when you're going to work, complaining about your coworkers, when you're complaining that your partner is an asshole, when you think you need to lose weight, when you think you need to buy more stuff, I'm just going to finish this point. I know the live stream ended.
Yeah.
You are not at a stage where you can see that there is no spoon. You can only get to the stage where you become aware that there is no spoon when you disidentify that from that. When you go into your observer's mind and you watch the you that is identified with your life from a little bit of distance. And that's when life gets interesting.
Yes.
So maybe we wrap up our
Maybe we
first
should.
episode.
Yeah, it looks like we went so long that the live video was like Instagram was
out.
Like, guys, enough of this.
Stop talking.
Enough of this woo-woo talk.
Too much? No, it's woo-woo.
Woo-woo.
Woo-woo-woo-woo.
Yeah, so, hey, this was fun.
We're bringing woo-woo back.
Yeah, so this is kind of how we do things on Sundays, pretty much every day.
Every day.
We like to talk about all of this stuff. So... if you like what we're talking about, subscribe, click the little notification if you're connecting on YouTube. Also, this is Jessie at rebelhippiesoul.com.
And I also have a YouTube channel.
She has a YouTube channel and she has an Instagram.
And a website.
I thought I said that's the .com is what that means.
.com.
Yeah. So she, if you're looking for coaching, spiritual coaching, mindfulness, all that stuff, spiritual dating, mindful dating, not even mindful dating, just dating. If you need help meeting people, she's great with that. And, I do coaching as well. And also I'm a voice teacher. And so I do singing lessons and all that. So if you're singing or you need help in your life, it's what we do. So this was our first episode 1.
We did it.
Of Conscious Coffee with Jessie and Tim, and or with Selfless Awakening and Rebel Hippie Soul. We'll stick to our spiritual avatars. So anyway, there you go. Thanks to those of you that stopped by and participated and left a comment in the Instagram. If it turns out we enjoy editing this video, we may do this again next week. So, all right.
Sounds good. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.